with a man who was supposed to be that generation's chosen one. On September 6th, 2026, WWE is giving us Obafemi versus Braun Breaker at Sunday night's main event. And this isn't just another powerhouse match. This feels different. Because when you look at these two men, you're not simply looking at two WWE superstars trying to win a match. You're looking at two completely different visions of WWE's future. On one side, you have Obafemi, the ruler, the destroyer, the man whose physical presence makes almost every opponent look smaller the moment he steps through those ropes. And on the other, Braun Breaker, explosive, aggressive, ridiculously athletic, and carrying a name that has been associated with wrestling greatness for generations. So the question isn't simply, who wins Obafemi versus Braun Breaker? The real question is, who walks out of Atlanta on September 6th looking like the future of WWE? Because I have a feeling the answer could change everything. The match that WWE couldn't avoid. WWE has officially announced Obafemi versus Braun Breaker for Sunday night's main event on September 6th, with the event scheduled to stream live at 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific. And honestly, it's about time, because WWE has been teasing the collision between these two monsters for a while. There have been confrontations. There have been stare-downs. There have been moments where you could almost feel the building waiting for one of them to finally throw the first punch. And that's what makes this match so fascinating. The anticipation isn't built around complicated wrestling politics. It isn't built around a championship being the only prize. It's built around something much simpler: power, pride, reputation, and perhaps most importantly, the future. WWE has been pushing Obafemi as one of the most physically imposing young stars in the company. But Braun Breaker was already carrying that label. For a long time, Breaker was the guy people pointed toward when they talked about WWE's next generation. The intensity, the athleticism, the speed, the family legacy, the attitude. Everything about Braun Breaker screamed future main eventer. But then another monster started climbing the mountain, and his name was Obafemi. Now these two paths are about to collide. Obafemi, the rise of the ruler. Let's talk about Obafemi, because if you're still looking at him as simply another powerhouse on the roster, you might be missing what WWE is actually building. Obafemi doesn't move like an ordinary WWE superstar. He doesn't enter a match like he's hoping to survive. He enters like he owns the place. That's the difference. There's a confidence to Oba that makes his matches feel almost uncomfortable. He doesn't need to sprint around the ring. He doesn't need 20 moves. He doesn't need to prove that he's the fastest guy in the building. He just needs to stand there. And suddenly, the opponent has a problem. That aura has become even stronger following his recent rise. Oba's momentum reached another level after his major program with Brock Lesnar, with WWE positioning Femi as one of the company's most dangerous rising stars. And that matters, because beating or surviving someone like Brock Lesnar changes how the audience looks at you. It tells the audience, this guy belongs here. But there's something even more interesting. Obafemi isn't trying to become the next Braun Breaker. He's trying to become the first Obafemi. And that could be his greatest advantage. He doesn't seem interested in borrowing someone else's identity. He has his own. The presentation, the confidence, the physical dominance, the feeling that he genuinely believes he's destined to rule. That's powerful. And on September 6th, that belief is going to be tested by perhaps the most explosive opponent he has faced yet. Braun Breaker, the man who refuses to be replaced. Because now we have to talk about Braun. And this is where the emotional side of the match gets interesting. Imagine being Braun Breaker. For years, people have told you that you're the future. You're the second generation star. You're the powerhouse. You're the genetic freak. You're the guy WWE can build around for the next decade. Then suddenly, someone else walks into the picture. And that someone is bigger, more physically imposing, more intimidating, and increasingly difficult to ignore. That's Obafemi. Braun Breaker, his timing, his ability to hit before Oba can establish control. Because once Oba gets his hands on you, the entire match can change in seconds. And that's the nightmare scenario for Braun Breaker. The biggest question. So here's the question I keep coming back to. What happens if Obafemi and Braun Breaker are equally determined to prove they're the future? Because that's what makes this more than a simple green match. Both men have something to lose. If Oba wins, the message is enormous. It says that the new generation has arrived. It says the ruler is no longer simply a promising prospect. He's ready for the biggest stage. But if Braun wins, that tells an equally important story. It says, don't forget about me. Braun could use this match to remind WWE exactly why he was considered one of the company's next great stars in the first place. And that's why I don't think either man can afford to lose badly. A competitive match protects both. But a dominant performance? That could create a new superstar. Imagine Obafemi surviving Braun's spear. Imagine Braun hitting everything he has, and Oba simply hits back up. The crowd would lose its mind. Or imagine the opposite. Oba goes for his biggest power move. Braun explodes out of nowhere. Spear. 1, 2, 3. Suddenly, the conversation changes. That's the beauty of this matchup. We genuinely don't know which monster is going to blink first. The styles collide. From a wrestling perspective, this could be fascinating because their strengths aren't identical. Obafemi is about control. Braun Breaker is about explosion. Oba wants to grab you, slow you down, and make you feel every ounce of his strength. Braun wants to create one opening and turn that opening into destruction. It's almost like watching a freight train collide with a missile. And that creates one very important question. Can Braun stay away from Oba long enough to hurt him? Because speed only matters if you can use it. If Oba cuts off the ring, catches Braun in mid-motion, and starts throwing him around, Breaker could find himself in unfamiliar territory. But there's another side to this. What happens if Oba gets frustrated? That's where Braun becomes dangerous. Breaker doesn't need to dominate an entire match. He needs one moment, one mistake, one opening, one charge across the ring, and suddenly, spear. That's why Oba can't afford to underestimate him, and I don't think he will. The biggest mistake Oba could make is believing that because he's bigger, he's automatically stronger in every aspect of the match. Braun's explosiveness is a weapon, and if he can turn this into chaos, that may actually favor him. Why this match feels like a generational battle. There's another reason this match matters. It's symbolic. Wrestling is always about generations. One generation establishes itself. Another generation watches. Then, eventually, the two collide. That's what this feels like. Braun Breaker represents a version of WWE's future that we've already been told about. We've heard the story. We've seen the push. We've watched him fight established stars. We've been told that one day Braun will be one of the faces of the company. But now Obafemi is standing there, and he's saying, what if I'm next? That's the emotional hook. It's not hatred. It's competition. It's ambition. It's two men who believe they deserve the same destination. And only one can walk away feeling like he proved his point. WWE has even framed the matchup around the idea of determining who represents the company's future. That's exactly the kind of story that can turn a regular match into a career-defining moment. My prediction. So, who wins? If we're talking purely about momentum, I have to lean toward Obafemi. And here's why. Oba doesn't necessarily need the victory because he needs validation. He needs the victory because WWE can use it to move him into an even higher tier. A win over Braun Breaker would give Oba something extremely valuable. Credibility. Not theoretical credibility. Not future star credibility. Not one day he'll be champion credibility. I'm talking about, I beat one of WWE's most dangerous young stars credibility. That's different. But I don't expect Braun to get destroyed. Not at all. I expect Braun to push Oba to his absolute limit. I expect the spear to become a huge factor. I expect Oba's power to be tested. And I expect the final moments to feel like WWE is making statement. My prediction? Obafemi defeats Braun Breaker, but only after surviving a terrifying late match comeback. I can picture Braun hitting the spear, The crowd thinks it's over. 1, 2, Oba kicks out. And suddenly, the entire arena realizes Braun has thrown his best shot, and Oba is still standing. That's the moment. That's the image WWE can build around. Oba slowly getting back to his feet. Braun realizing he's in trouble. And then, the ruler strikes. One final devastating move. 1, 2, 3. Obafemi wins. But here's the twist. But here's where I think WWE has an opportunity to make this even bigger. Don't let the story end with a 3 count. Because if Oba wins, Braun shouldn't simply disappear. And if Braun loses, that shouldn't mean his future is suddenly over. Instead, let Braun stare at Oba. Let Oba stare back. No handshake. No cheap attack. No unnecessary nonsense. Just 2 men realizing something has changed. Braun has found the man standing directly in his way, and Oba has found the man capable of pushing him further than almost anyone else. That creates the rematch, and eventually, maybe creates a championship match. Because if WWE really believes these 2 are the future, why stop at 1? So on September 6th, 2026, don't just watch Obafemi versus Braun Breaker looking for a winner. Watch it looking for the moment. The moment when one of these 2 men realizes, this is my era. Braun Breaker has spent years being called the future. Obafemi is starting to look like the man who wants to take that future away from him. And when these 2 powerhouses collide at Sunday night's main event, we may finally discover who WWE believes should lead the next generation. Obafemi, Braun Breaker, 2 monsters, 1 future, 1 statement, and perhaps the beginning of WWE's next great rivalry. So let me know in the comments, who wins Obafemi versus Braun Breaker on September 6th, 2026? Is the ruler finally ready to take over? Or does Braun Breaker remind everyone why WWE believed he was the future in the first place? Because whatever happens, the future of WWE is about to get very, very loud.